What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be working on the Ford Excursion. For you that don't know already, this is my 2003 Ford Excursion, and it has a 6.0 Powerstroke in it. Very hated diesel, depending who you ask. Yeah, it has 223,000. So for being a 220,000 mile truck, obviously it's not perfect, other than here and the slight tear there. The interior, for the most part, is pretty darn in good shape. Not a fan of tan, but has the captain seats in the back, which is pretty baller. Has some slight features on it, but you can't tell what team that is. Has the barn doors, which is pretty sick. It being that I got it for a good deal, it's a project. I ain't gonna lie, I drove it here. I still don't know how I got it here, and it drove kind of decent. This thing is gonna need a full rebuild. I looked at it at night, and it looked like a few things were leaking. First of all, it's gonna need an oil pan. The oil pan is painted in JB Weld, and that's what we're gonna tackle today. But I have a whole set of parts. This is gonna be an excursion, let's call it excursion resurrection rebuild. All right, so this is the rebuild list that I made so far for the Ford Excursion. So the front main seal is leaking, so that would entitle me to also do the water pump, the obviously like EGR delete, oil cooler, stock head gaskets, and stock head studs. So in stock oil cooler, all that stuff, I have no idea what's done to it until I actually get in there. But steering box, I got that done as soon as I got the truck. I didn't get to film it, but I'll show real quick what it is. I got a redhead steering box. Yeah, there you go. Look, it still even has a tag on it. Basically, it's just these three bolts here. That holds most of the weight, and you got to remove some lines that are buried right behind there. Had to do that. The steering was horrible, and it was leaking like crazy. And now the steering wheel is dead nuts, which is sick, so this thing's gonna be driving brand new. Back to the list. Ball joints, top and bottom, everything, front end, axle seals, oil pan, which we're gonna be working on right now. This thing has 220,000 miles, okay? So if not, everything has to just get looked at, because that's an abuse. Thing got treated like shit. Brake overhaul, obviously. Transmission lines, I noticed transmission lines were leaking. Front cover was leaking. Fan adapter, because it's more reliable. Thermostat, IPR and ICP sensors, which this is just error codes that my truck was throwing, so that's why I'm going to go in and replace that. Blue Spring fuel pressure kit. Warrant fuel pressure, don't want your fuel pressure to drop. So the tow hitch in the back of this is completely squatted. I'll show you guys. Tail hitch is supposed to be right under, like a complete 90. It's a little squatted. It's a little bent down, which is has me worried. It could just be a bent tow hitch, which is a simple like $200-300 piece, maybe more if you want to get a baller one. Bought one of those, which should just be the back replacement. I hope that the frame isn't bent. Those trucks only have 11,000 pound like gross pulling weight, so it's not hard to go overweight and accidentally fuck something up severely. But we'll get there when we get there. Just don't worry about it, right? And then last but not least, we got the fuel line, which is leaky. So the fuel line, that thing's a long bitch. You got a fuel line that's all the way in the back, that runs all the way. It's one solid piece. It has a lot of patches, like at least 3 patches. So I was able to find a total excursion online on eBay, and I lucked out and got the whole fuel line. That one has no cracks, no leaks, nothing like that. So it's just an aluminum fuel line, so it's very easy to get fucked up. Hopefully that fixes that issue as well. So there's a lot that I listed. This is just on site. I still have yet to rip anything out except for obviously the steering box. Today we're doing oil pan. Okay, so we're working on the oil pan first and foremost because it is a leaky mother F. All right, let me just show you. Welcome to my oil pan. As you can see right there, that gray material, that is all JB Weld. I guarantee you this is the original oil pan. All right, so this is what you're gonna need to do an oil pan and oil change. First off, get your old Chinesium oil pan. That's what I did. Same thing, you know, just it's obviously not going to be perfect. Look for defects along here, but oil pan. You're gonna need your gaskets. These were cheap, eBay, 6.0 gaskets. Then, since you're doing an oil change, you're gonna need yourself 4 gallons of oil. I'm using Mobile One. Use whatever you prefer. Oil filter, and also it comes with your O-ring. It's important. Replace that or leakage. Last but not least, you need a drain pan. I just picked this up. I have plenty of these. It doesn't matter what you use. Just make sure don't get oil everywhere. It's a mess. All right, so the tools you're gonna need for the motor mounts is gonna be. I was just using a 1/2-inch ratchet with a 1/2-inch swivel, 13/16. And an extension for when you can't get to them. For the oil pan drain, using a 3/4. For the top radiator brackets, I just used a small 1/4-inch ratchet with 8mm to crack those. Very simple. And then for the oil pan bolts, 5/16 with definitely use an extension and also a swivel for those hard to reach areas. I got away with, on the passenger side, using the UGA for the 13/16 motor mounts. But yeah, you're not going to get to use this as much as you want. Too bad! Don't forget to remove your oil filter housing. When it's draining, it can actually breathe. Alright, start by removing your the oil pan drain. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That shit's rank. The oil's drained. You just want to throw this bolt back in, just so you don't get it all over you when you're trying to get this pan out. Alright, next up, just try to get as many of these bolts as you can get out. If you can't get them out, then it'll be easier once we jack up the motor. Ford engineers designed this. You can't just take off the oil pan easy. You gotta jack it up first, because this cradle right here that's underneath the oil pan is too close, so you're not able to get the oil pan out. So what we have to do is loosen the motor mount bolts, which I already have. This is the driver's side, this is the passenger side. Once you get those loose, they are 13/16. You'll also want to loosen your radiator supports. You could take them off if you want, but you don't have to. That your radiator is no longer attached, so it can freely move. I also have, everything is removed, inner and outer tie rod, so I have more room. I was gonna replace them anyways. We need to get that oil pan. So what we're gonna do, you're going jack up from this point, this pulley right here. Use a 2x4, a stump, anything you can, get your jack under there, and you're gonna slowly jack up the motor and get it to a reasonable height, but don't rush. Alright, so once you got all the oil pan bolts out, what I did to not lose track, because there's some that are longer than others, and basically overall I want to try to keep the bolts that I took out in the same position. I took the box that the oil pan came in, took the new oil pan, flipped it over, just traced it and traced the holes themselves, and this is all the oil pan bolts. So as you can see, so just imagine you're laying underneath. That would be driver side front, this would be passenger side front, and then passenger side rear, driver rear. Longer bolts, the 3 in the front, so there's a total of 5 long ones, so 2 in the middle back, 2 in the front, and then 1 passenger front. The rest should be all tiny ones. Next up, you gotta remove the pickup tube right here. It's 2 5/16 bolts. I was able to get in there 1/4 inch drive, get these 2 loosened up, Drop the pickup tube right into the pan. You'll know you'll be jacked up enough as soon as the pan clears the transmission bell housing. Once you get your pickup tube out and the two bolts, you should get your oil pan should slide right out. So take a look at this. So this is the new boy. Camera doesn't even do justice. Like the amount of JB Weld that is on this pan is insane to me. I could probably punch a hole through this shit. Look at that. Look at that. Oh yeah. Day 2, look a little different. But anyways, let's get the upper oil pan off. To remove the upper oil pan from the block itself, you gotta remove all these. So these are 5/16 just like the rest of them. So there's 9 of those. And you also have to remove, these are 10 mils, 2, 4, 6. It should already be ready to go, so let's get those out of the way. So once you get the upper oil pan off, you really want to make sure that this surface here, clean this off as best you can so you have the best mating surface. Also, don't forget to clean the upper oil pan itself. As you can see, this thing is a monstrosity. It is stink. I only cleaned half of it. Look at this. So this is what I cleaned so far, just this side. This is purely for just visual, because this doesn't even sit inside of the engine. It just sits exterior. But regardless, I didn't even know there was numbers here. This is what it looked like. There's a lot worse. Look at this. Look at this. Look at that. That is just like what it's supposed to look like. How it came out. Take care of your shit, people. So once you think you got your oil pan clean enough, your upper oil pan that attaches to the block, meaning the whole thing is not all black and nasty, go ahead and put on your gaskets now. Start right here in this corner where it has a little dimple, and then just work my way around. Make sure you wear gloves so to push in that rubber. Make sure you run your fingers around the whole perimeter of it. This gasket is pretty good. It seems to like, it holds itself in there. But what I was talking about, this little like dimple, and then just work your way around. And now do the same thing to the other side. This time I'm gonna start where the circle is. You know, shout out Diesel Tech Ron. That's how I figured out how to do this whole thing. Rest in peace. Still helping beyond the grave. It's all seated properly. Once you get the gaskets in the upper oil pan and the block itself is cleaned out, should be time to reassemble this piece. I got the oil pan, the upper oil pan temped in. I'm gonna get the rest of these in the center all in. Now that every single bolt is in and they're all hand tight, the last thing you want to do is snap one. When we place the lower oil pan, you also have to place an oil pickup tube with the 2 bolts, and don't forget to replace that O-ring as well. Alright, so before we throw on that oil pan, again, thank you Diesel Tech Ron. This system actually does not require any gasket, just regular gasket maker. Nothing too crazy, just to prevent any chance of it leaking, because I do not want to do this job again. I'm going to run a little bead on the inside from about here on both sides forward, and I'm going to leave the back, still get my hands in there and put on the oil pickup tube. Pickup tube is in. Definitely one of the hardest things. Just got to hand thread it in. Put the rest of the gasket all the way around. Get all the screws just hand tight first. All of the bolts are in all around. Snug them all down. with a 1/4" ratchet. Give them a half ugga, all right? Oil pan is all buttoned up, ready to go. Moment of truth. Let's get the oil filter changed. All right, for the oil filter, just go OEM on this one. A simple swap-a-roo. It's the O-ring for the housing. Just come off like that. Look at this stank. Stank, not stank. Stank, not stank. And also, when you put the new O-ring, just be nice if you just give it a little, you know, put a little bit of old oil on there or whatever, so it seals up nice. All right, last but not least, we're gonna put the oil. Going with some Mobil 1 5W40. The 6.0 takes about almost 4 of these. It's like 14 and something liters, which is about like 3, almost 4 gallons. But you're not going to use all of the 4th one, obviously. So just be considerate when you're dumping it in. Just keep checking the dipstick and make sure that you're at the appropriate level. Skid it. Topped off the oil. So I got the oil right under the max line. The last bottle I used, just above that second line there. It's time to start it up. I haven't started it up in a fucking long time. So fingers crossed. Hopefully it starts. Shh. Treat me nice, please. We got nothing. And we had no luck. It was just cranking, no start. So I thought it was just a battery issue. So overnight, I let the other battery charge the following day. It's day 2, maybe 3 of diagnosing why the truck's not starting. So since I didn't want to ball out and buy any fancy like edge tuner type scanner gauge thing to figure out what's wrong with the truck, I just went ahead and bought this $160 kind of ancient piece. It is it's a scan gauge, so it just plugs in directly to your OBD2, and it's pretty simple. When you plug it in, it's gonna give you the generic things that it can automatically scan. But if you set up your parameters on it, which there's tutorials on YouTube. So I set it up to have my FICM main power, which is right here in the bottom left. IPR, which is your, pretty sure it's like your ignition pressure regulator, which is also very important. This is your sync signal for your camshaft and crankshaft positions are in sync. So like if it's 0, I mean it would not be in sync, and if it's 1, that means it would be in sync. And then finally the ICP right here, which is your injection control pressure. Put your key on position. So I already know it's the IPR sensor because I already tested this, but I want to make sure you guys see this. So for the FICM main power, it's supposed to hold at least 48, 49. It's not supposed to drop at all. It's supposed to hold around this number. Your sync is supposed to be 1. 0 means it's not in sync. And then your ICP, it's supposed to climb. It's supposed to be over 500. But if it's cranking and it's climbing due to something else failing, and as long as this is climbing, then I know my ICP is still okay. So I'm going to prove to you guys that I know it's my IPR. This is supposed to be this is supposed to be 14.8, 15 max default. But if it goes to 80, that means it's closed, which means it's no bueno, no bueno. All right, let me show you. I'm gonna start cranking. As you can see, IPR went up to 84, sync hit 1. This held and my ICP started to climb. Now I got that out of the way. Just more pieces to order, which is fine, but we'll take care of that in the next video to get it started. 6.0s, gotta love them. Oil pan is done, and we figured out what the cause was for the truck not starting. I'm gonna show you now because it's a little better of what it looks like fully installed on the truck with no leaks. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Look at that shining boy right there. See it? Look at that. It's all nice and clean. Don't look at everything else though. No drippage. Ooh, it's so nice. And then we can actually get it running and get it up to temperature and see if it actually starts leaking out of the pan. Hopefully it won't. But, you know, it's not leaking right now. This job is my first time ever doing an oil pan, believe it or not. It happens to be the most difficult oil pan. So out of 10, I'm gonna give it a 8.5. It took me just about 2.5 days to get this done. All in all, you know, working on it, then, you know, smashing my head against a wall and then working on it again. I think doing it again, I definitely know what to look out for. It doesn't help that it's the crustiest thing ever. Anybody can definitely do this themselves. I would just say take your time, make sure you do your research, make sure you have everything you need before you do this job, because you don't want to start doing this and then find out that you have to get something and you're like, shit, now I have an oil pan off and I can't finish the job. All in all, it's done. Next up, all right, oil pan done. Next up, IPR and ICP sensor. Might as well do them both in one hit because they're relatively close in the same location, and if you're doing one, you might as well do the other. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching, if you like watching. If you guys are excited for this Ford Excursion Resurrection rebuild, this was part one of many parts. Peace!